Hey skiers, I'm Jeff from skiessentials.com.
I'm Bob. How's it going?
Bob and I are here today to do another 2025 ski comparison. This time we're looking at 100 millimeter men's skis, and this is going to be a little bit interesting. You know, I shouldn't even really say men's skis because like Line specifically says that that's not a men's or a women's ski.
Correct.
So anyways, we're looking at 100 millimeter skis in this comparison, and it's going to be a little bit different. We tried to fit everything into one video, but I think we came up to like 35 or 36 skis, and that just doesn't fit.
So 28 seems to be our max.
That's the max, yeah. So what we did is we're splitting this into part 1 and part 2, and we're going in that kind of what I think is now kind of a classic organization of Slarvy to Carvey. Like we talked about in the 90 millimeter video that we did the same organization, that generally corresponds with like playful to directional.
Yeah.
But it's not exactly cut and dry. It's not completely black and white. And I actually think it's going to be a very interesting video because there are some kind of nuances throughout this wall and the next one that we're going to do. So if you're looking at this comparison and you're thinking like, well, hey, where's the Salomon Stance 102 or the Blizzard Anomaly 102? They will be in the next video, which will be those more carvy oriented, more directional skis.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be fun. I have some opinions of my own about this wall and the organization of skis. Essentially, Bob did this. So I'm excited
to pick it all apart.
I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong. I just want to bring up like certain spots where I think you could argue that you could shift or trade some skis.
Yeah, totally.
You ready?
Happy to have those conversations.
You ready for it?
Yeah.
So we'll get started with this first ski, and this is actually one that I think could shift a little bit. It's actually more like the third ski that we're going to talk about could be the ski that we start with, but we are starting with this Elan Playmaker 101. It is extremely playful. It is very, very Slarvy, so it belongs over here on the Slarvy side. Elan calls the rocker profile Surf Rocker, so yeah, it's going to be over here. And it's essentially back unchanged for 2025. We just get a different top sheet material, and like the finish quality is a little bit better just all the way around. It just looks cleaner. I can't really exactly put a finger on specifically why. I do love the top sheet. It's like kind of like a combination of matte and glossy, which I think looks really cool.
Yeah. Just
super, super clean. But aside from that, it's all the same. So tube light wood core, carbon rods underfoot. So basically just 2 of them. And it's a pretty darn soft flexing ski. It is not the softest ski we're going to look at, but it's got to be among the top 4, probably 3, maybe even 2. It's probably among the top 2 softest skis up here, and we'll look at that third ski we're going to look at is the softest. So you could argue that it's a little bit more carvy than some skis up here, but it's pretty soft, and it's like 1,700 grams. So it's extremely, extremely easy to flick around. It is extremely agile, and that is why I think it is a good one to start with, because it's going to be one of the lightest skis up here. And I think the combination of a lightweight feel on your feet and then the rocker profile and the flex pattern makes it incredibly maneuverable, incredibly Slarvy and playful. There's that surf rocker profile, so quite a bit of tip rocker up there, and then quite a lot of tail rocker back here as well. Not like a crazy amount of early taper. Like if you compare it to that QST98 over there, that has way more early taper, but there is some. You know, I think it's important to point out that there's some taper there. And then not much camber underfoot, which I think is pretty interesting. And this one's got a 18.1 meter turn radius, and it is 132, 101, 122. So it's not like a symmetrical twin tip. You know, it is still a directional ski, but the rocker profile is, let's say, more symmetrical than not. It's not quite exactly symmetrical, but it's pretty darn close. So it would be a far cry for me to call it a directional ski. And I absolutely love this thing. I really have since day one. I think it matches me pretty well. Like, I'm very lightweight for a skier, or I mean, compared to the population of male skiers my height or taller, I'm pretty lightweight.
Yeah.
And I don't push through the flex pattern at all. I actually find that this ski has a good amount of bite. You can make some like kind of fun, clean, round carving turns on it. You have to stay really centered doing that. Like, you can't expect too much from up here, and similarly, you can't expect like too much out of the tail. You have to stay pretty centered. Outside of that, it is an absolute blast in the trees here in Vermont. We have some of the tightest trees probably in the world, and often challenging snow conditions, and this ski makes all of those things super, super easy. Like I said, it's just so light that it's so easy to flick around, never feels fatiguing at all. Like, you could ski bell to bell on a Playmaker 101. You're just gonna feel nice and fresh at the end of the day. Maybe not, but
No, but
it helps.
And like, I know that to be true because this is one of the few skis that I can do it like a slash turn on really easily.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't come naturally to me, but on a
on this.
Playmaker 101, it's a lot easier.
Yep. And I really like it in the park too. It's on the light side for a park ski. It's not going to like be completely supportive on landings. There's some footage from, like, not this past year, but the year before that I'll throw in, where I kind of, wheelie out on some slightly backseat landings and stuff like that. But that doesn't bother me. I've talked about this before. It almost feels worse if the ski is really stiff and just tries to keep you up, and you feel it like in the back of your boot, just like slamming into your calf.
Right.
And that's how you get crazy shin pain and shin bang in the park. So yeah, I have no issues with the fact that it's not like the most stable ski on landings. It's just something to consider. But outside of that, it's super forgiving in the park. Like, switch takeoffs and stuff like that are really easy with the rocker profile and with the taper. And yeah, I just think it's a fantastic ski. I think it's probably best for somebody who has that kind of freestyle attitude and probably goes into the park from time to time. But I know you, Bob, have enjoyed it in the 188 as well.
Yeah, it definitely made more sense to me in the 188. And I think when we first got on this 180, you had mounted it with a demo binding,
Like
and yours
center.
was a little more forward.
Yeah.
So when I got on the 188 and put it in like kind of
Traditional.
the traditional mount, it really made a lot more sense, and I was pretty surprised with the amount of energy and responsiveness that you got out of it.
Yeah, there is like a 6 centimeter range of mount points.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some customization to this ski, similar to what we've always talked about with Bent 100, which will come up pretty soon.
Yeah, soon enough. Before that, though, we got an Armada ARV 100, and this ski does get the new poplar wood core for 2025. So, a move from lighter weight Karuba to a slightly denser poplar wood core. We do get an ash binding insert underfoot as well, and then they still incorporate their wedge wall technology. So the sidewall is built into the core and then pressed together. Really just delivers a very predictable and impressive performance, just kind of having the ski function as one unit and then increasing durability as well. So we'll talk about that with your Reckoner up next, Jeff, but also helps with Armada, especially with these ARV skis. When you're looking at declivity and the move to poplar, like, they always had additional materials like carbon or metal that kind of played against that Karuba. When ARV had Karuba and nothing else going on, no additives other than fiberglass, then they got a little bit jittery, but I think poplar in this makes really good sense. 1,895 grams here in the 180, and it's a little bit lighter and more flexible than even the narrower 94, which I think is pretty interesting. Puts this certainly more into that floaty and more free ride character than the 94, which, it's narrower, it's a little more torsionally stiff, a little denser overall, so it makes a better all mountain option. But I think if you're more focused on softer snow performance, whether it's pure powder, crud through the trees, so many of these skis are really good in the woods, and ARV 100 is right there with them. Also does a nice job of mixing kind of modern shaping with a more traditional profile. So kind of a longer, more modern early taper shape here. Just to get that flotation up a little bit. We talk about it in the park a lot. It's a lot less hooky going on takeoffs and landings. So that seems to be filtering in. You can kind of oppose it with a more classically tapered Oblivion 102 here.
Even like Unleashed.
Yep, or Idolo even.
Yeah.
So it's really a matter of preference if you're thinking about taper in a park application. And then they kind of balance that with, pretty traditional and somewhat long camber underfoot. So lots of energy built into the ski through this camber profile. 18-meter turn radius, 128, 100, 120. So 8-millimeter drop from tip to tail. Definitely makes it a little bit more directional, but also very predictable and consistent throughout. But basically universal appeal and love for this ARV 100, don't you think, Jeff?
Yeah.
People just really enjoy this new ski.
Yeah, it's always been a favorite among our like park-oriented testers, like myself. But then it's always interesting to put like a directional skier on it, and they have a fantastic time.
Yeah.
And I think the change to Poplar definitely improved its all-mountain capabilities. It's a little bit more trustworthy. It's a little bit stronger overall. A little bit more stability in it. And I like fully appreciate the movement towards durability.
Yeah.
Like if that's your driving force between like changing a ski, and who cares if you made it a little bit heavier? If it's going to last longer for skiers that really beat it up, I think that's awesome. And like really a good transition from Playmaker, because they're both phenomenal like park / all mountain / freeride skis. I would say this one is better for that skier who's going a little bigger, a little bit more like raw park attitude in the ARV. Like Armada has such a impressive list of athletes, and most of them go huge. So having a ski like this to support that is awesome. And I spent a ton of time this past season on the ARW 100. I skied it in the park a lot and had a blast, and I skied this a fair amount this past season, but I wasn't on my own bindings, and I didn't slide it on rails that much and anything like that. So I'd love the opportunity to do a similar kind of long-term test with a lot of park skiing on this ski and dial in the differences. I don't think they're vast in the park compared to the previous ski, but it is slight. So.
Yeah, no, I had a blast on these this year and got some nice powder days for it too. So
it's really good in soft snow.
Really good in soft snow.
Yeah.
And you can, even if it has like that higher camber profile, it's still flexible enough that you can push through it and manipulate it.
Well, it can handle like some denser snow too.
Yeah, totally.
Because it's like, there's some substance here. Where like, I would say both Playmaker and Reckner that we'll talk about next, like if you had like a denser, wetter snowpack, it wouldn't completely jive with the ski. You could absolutely still do it, but I think ARV 100 is a little better in that regard.
Yeah, it's more helpful.
Yep. And then kind of continuing that conversation about changing a ski with intentions of durability, this is a new Reckner 102 for 2025 that I'm very excited about. We did a really long, full review of this ski this past year. That was pretty much just from my perspective. Because I
didn't ski it.
I got to put my own bindings on it and just put it through the paces on my own, which I think makes sense because it's way more up my alley than yours, I'd say, Bob. But one of my favorite things about the changes to this ski is they changed the top sheet quite a bit, and then really like all of K2's twin tips for 2025 have this like slight kind of cap construction, or like just wrapping the top sheet over the very first edge of the ski. And just like having seen things like this before, like Chronic actually has a pretty similar finish to it. It just gives them a very durable feel, like far less prone to top sheet chipping and delaminations. And the previous Reckner 102s, we saw some durability issues. It was such a fun ski. But a lot of people just bashed it around a little too hard and broke them.
Yeah, people hammered on those things, and like,
Yeah.
you know, I think a lot of it has to do with the style of the ski, but that skier that you're talking about is,
Yeah, they just are hard on their equipment.
yeah, they go for it.
Yeah. So it was like it was just like the perfect storm of like, you made a ski that a bunch of aggressive, like freestyle younger skiers are gonna buy, and it wasn't the strongest thing in the world. And I think they've countered that really nicely with this new one. So Aspen microblock wood core in this ski, which is a little bit different than the previous version. 1,930 grams. I wish I could remember what the old Reckoner 102 weighed, but this is a little bit heavier. And then they still get carbon spectral braid, that kind of cross-hatching application of carbon. We see it in Mindbender carbon skis as well. And then this gets carbon boost in it as well, which is kind of woven into that triaxial fiberglass
Yep.
wrap that K2 is famous for. And very, very soft flexing ski, which is by design. Like, that carbon spectral braid is not designed to add longitudinal stiffness. It's designed to add torsional stiffness. And that's something that has been always been really cool about Reckoner 102s, is they bend so easily in a longitudinal format, but they don't twist that easily. So they like trench into these like super deep
Yeah.
carving turns, which is really fun. And it is definitely skier weight dependent. So like for me, I can carve on this ski and it's so much fun. I would imagine for you it's more challenging.
I have to be like on a pinpoint
On your toes,
balance,
yeah.
like in order to,
Yeah.
but you know, and the 10% of the turns that I can make it go, I do feel that, and it's more like for me that carbon spectral braid, it's not like it makes it torsionally stiffer, but provides more torsional feedback.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's like, you know,
That's
it
a good
still
way to
doesn't
think about
feel
it.
stiff, but it feels very responsive to your inputs.
Yeah.
So I do still, I have felt the benefits of that ski in its older form.
Yeah.
And, you know, also just like watching you flex it and then putting it on the scale, it is like an anti-core. Like,
Yeah,
we'll have the Core
it's
99.
heavy and soft.
Yeah, we'll have the
Yeah.
Core 99 on our next wall.
That's a
and
good
it's
point.
funny to think about like how opposite skis can be.
Yeah.
Where like we're always talking about the head core blend of lightweight and stiff flex, and now we have a heavier weight and a softer flex. So
Right.
just really interesting to see how many differences there are in ski design out there.
Tons of rocker in this thing. Pretty similar to what we saw in Playmaker, maybe a little bit shorter in Reckoner than Playmaker. And then like pretty much exact length in tail rocker. So this one is a little bit more symmetrical. I believe we see that in the side cut too. 134, 102, 127. So yeah, we're only a 7 millimeter difference between tip and tail dimensions. So getting pretty darn centered. And then a little bit higher camber height, which I think is nice because it is so soft that gives you something to push against. And then like only 2 centimeters of mount point recommendations here, rather than the 6 that we saw in Playmaker or
Right.
like the 10 that we're going to see in Bent 100. So I think that's kind of telling that it is a little bit more freestyle and more park focused. And I had a blast on this thing. It's got to be one of my favorite skis on the market now because it just works perfectly well for me. I can't think of a ski that I liked more in the park this past season. Mostly because there were other new skis to test, and this was one of them. But so much fun for me in the park. I think the flex pattern and the shape makes it exceptionally forgiving. And for me in the park, when I'm on a ski that feels super forgiving, it just like, it equates to more confidence because I know that I can kind of get out of trouble really quickly. So switch spins, like it's not catchy on takeoff at all. It's very confidence inspiring as a park ski. And then I like it because it's super fun for me in the trees and stuff like that too. So like honestly, if I was going out for just a fun day of skiing, which doesn't happen,
Right.
like ever. I always have fun on skis, but it's not, I rarely get the chance to go to the mountain and just do 100% what I want to do. If I do get that opportunity, skis like the Playmaker 101 and the Reckoner 102 are basically exactly what I want to be on because I can do everything that I like to do. And like ripping high level carving turns on steep terrain, like while I enjoy doing that, it's chances are it's not what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah, it's percentages.
If I'm choosing.
Yeah.
I'm going to be riding the 6-pack at Stowe and basically lapping the park while going through that riverbed that I'm not going to tell people where it is because it's hidden.
It's very secret.
But yeah, I love this ski. It's great. It is absolutely not for everybody.
Yeah.
You could put somebody on this and their reaction would be, that is the worst ski I've ever skied. Yeah. So it's all dependent on skiing style and expectations.
We get a new Liberty Helix 99 for this year. We've talked about Liberty kind of at length. They have new models in terms of the scope and the Radian. Scope picks up where Origin left off, and Radian is the new kind of Evolve series, although they are very different from both Origin and Evolve. Helix is really the only name and general style of ski that has continued forward into 2025.
And still made in China, too.
Yep. And still, like, we still get to say that these use bamboo in the wood core. They use carbon stringers as well for energy, but kind of a lighter weight wood that goes into these skis. We do have the binding plates on here as well. I usually think those are about 200 grams. So 2203 on the scale here. So probably around 2,000 grams overall on this ski.
You see a screwdriver over there? I'll take it off.
No, it's all right.
Okay.
We can just pretend.
I don't see one anywhere on the floor.
But generally, like, this Helix skier has not been too concerned about weight. They like the feel and the
energy.
kind of the energy, and then a very smooth and silent nature to it. So we do get to still talk about how quiet that bamboo is, and then we also get to look at the thickness of the wood core. Really what they've done for this year is change the flex pattern and just made it a little bit different than in years past. So we actually see like a slightly softer shovel flex and then a stiffer tail flex. With that more wood, they're able to adjust that flex. And Jeff, you're going to make fun of me for saying that it insulates because it's so thick.
Yeah, I think the joke's played out now.
But it really does, it really takes the noise level down, just increasing the distance between the top and the bottom with that core thickness. And you can really see it overall from tip to tail, very thick core profile with those sidewalls. So really, really interesting ski from Liberty, definitely different than most other things we see here. And just another good example of a wider park-oriented ski. So I think that skiers like yourself that seem to kind of gravitate towards this 100 millimeter range for their more park-specific skis, and you like that smooth and silent overall feel, and pretty predictable flex, I think this Helix is a great place to be. And nothing crazy about this shape and profile. There is some longer rocker, and I would say that maybe one of the more outstanding points is a little bit sharper of a tail.
Not much taper in that
shape.
thing.
No, it's, kind of, it narrows, but it never really bows out a whole lot. So it keeps it pretty straight and kind of a more classic style in nature. 133.99, 121. And 19.5 meter turn radius here in the 179. So pretty cool ski. I just think that the Liberty story is an interesting one, as a lot of people kind of move into that Scope series for more of a directional twin tip. This thing definitely fits more into the freestyle category.
They're so different than Scope.
They're so different.
It's a very interesting period for Liberty this season.
Yeah.
Because, this is like way stiffer than Scope.
Yeah.
So, like, in their catalog or on their website, like, this is going to be indicated as more freestyle oriented, but it's actually way stiffer than Scope. So, like, use case, I think, matters, or like skier style. So, like, some people might get on this and find that it is more freestyle oriented, where somebody else could get on this and be like, oh, that's like a little bit more powerful.
Yeah. But way different.
Interesting comparison.
Yeah, even than the Reckoner, like, these are
much stiffer.
Just because of its kind of twin tip freestyle nature, it ends up going that way, but it could certainly filter towards
Yeah,
me
and
on this side.
that's kind of a theme that'll continue.
Yeah.
Like, there are some skis up here that kind of punch above their weight for carving performance, but their shape keeps them here.
Yeah. But one of those solid skis, as you were saying, that like, do you want some tail to help you out?
Right.
Like that's where this Helix is going to come in handy.
Yeah, and I think you used the word traditional maybe. I don't remember exactly if you did.
I might have.
I feel like it has a more traditionalist feel as a
Yeah.
twin tip.
Yep.
Like it reminds me of like this style ski from like 10 years ago, which isn't a bad thing
Right.
because some people really like that stuff.
Kind of like this.
Exactly. That ski, it's the same as it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Not exactly. Sorry, Rosignol. Next ski up here, I'm very excited to talk about. This is the Atomic Bent 100. All new ski for 2025, this and the 120 change. I feel like they've brought this ski into the 2025 year.
Yeah.
It was starting to feel slightly outdated in its previous shape, and I love all the changes to it for 2025. And it's actually like, I suppose I decided that I would go first, and partly it was because I really liked the progression from Playmaker to Reckoner to Bent 100.
You just counted backwards from Bent.
Yeah, sort of. No, I more just went forward from Playmaker, but I was like, yeah, those three skis I would like to talk about. And I do think there is a trend. I mean, you could throw ARV into there too. I feel like Helix is a little bit of an outlier, but it does feel like this is continuing a similar conversation of like surfy and playful, but it's like getting, as we move that way, you're getting like a little bit more all-mountain performance, which I think is cool. So maybe you're not like a pure park skier like back here in Reckoner 102, but you still want a similar feel. I think Bent 100 is a great place to be. Lightweight wood core in this ski. Very, very simple construction in the Bent 100, and really all the Bent skis. I'd say the 120 gets some additives, but they're really just relying on wood, which I think is awesome. They're very environmentally focused, or at least Chris Benchetler is, and I'd say it's fair to say that Atomic is too. So by using more wood and less epoxy and less fiberglass, they're a little bit more sustainable in their construction. And we've talked about it a lot over the years. It's just how good a wood core twin tip ski can be, and this might be the best example.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
Yeah. The other thing that's new for 2025 is there's new Horizon tech. It's pretty darn similar, but it's a little bit more extended. It's not going to come through great on camera, but it increases the surfiness, in my opinion. And that's not the only reason why. We'll look at the tail in just a second here. A little bit stiffer than both Playmaker and Reckoner. It's a little softer than Helix, probably a pretty darn comparable flex pattern to that ARV. 1,800 grams, so pretty light. Not as light as Playmaker, but lighter than most everything else that we've talked about so far. And then that other big thing that added to the surfiness is the change in shape. So I would say tip profile remains basically the same as the previous ski, but the tail changes quite a bit. So this tail used to have really no rocker in it whatsoever, so the edges would like come right together at the end of the ski, and then it had just this kind of little bit of rise in the tail. And now it's got significantly longer tail rocker. It is still directional. It's not a symmetrical ski. It's not something that you want to like truly center mount, but it is getting, say, a little bit more balanced from tip and tail shape than the previous ski. And then really, really high camber height in these things. And then the last thing that we'll look at is a 10 millimeter or 10 centimeter range in different mount points. So like when I ski it, I go all the way up to +6 and get it as centered as possible. I do know that there are people that go to -4, which to me is crazy.
Yeah, it sounds weird. I mean, it sounds weird for me.
Yeah, but there are people
yeah,
that really like to have just all the tip and not much tail behind them, and then it becomes like truly a directional ski. So I think it's a blast. I've always really enjoyed it, like just kind of cruising around the mountain as an all-mountain ski. It's very playful. It's very easy to ski. It's very responsive too. I think the big benefit from this new ski is how it feels in softer snow and how it feels in trees and stuff like that, because it's just more, it's more swivelly from that increased tail rocker. And like, it's kind of interesting because for me, that's a benefit. I would assume that there are people out there that really liked the previous shape because it gave them more feedback out of the tail. But I think this is where it should be in the market.
Yeah.
Is a little bit looser, but still like there's still some responsiveness there too. So for me, it's better in the trees than anything that we've looked at so far. And you just take away a little bit of park performance. But still perfectly appropriate in the park, especially for somebody who their priorities are shifting a little bit away from pure park performance into more versatile all-mountain freeride performance.
I think I spent more time on this ski than any other ski this year.
Yeah, because you like skied it during the ski test when you were filming people.
Yep, skied it with my kids a bunch.
Yep.
Like the demo that we have out there, that was in my possession for a good portion of the season, pretty much as soon as we got it. And you know, I am a Bent 100 owner of a previous generation, or the last one, I should say. And this is a really nice update.
Yeah.
You know, it just feels smoother and more powerful on my feet.
Yeah. Well, the wood core is smoother.
Yeah.
Like extending that wood into the horizon tech a little bit.
I never had a problem with like the playfulness in the tail and the surfiness of the old one.
I was thinking of you when I said that.
Yeah. You know, but like, nor do I have a problem with the increase. I don't feel like it takes away directional performance, because that's not what this ski is for.
Correct.
You know, I like it because it goes where I tell it to and I don't have to think about it, and it feels good on my feet.
Right.
Like it just does what I tell it to do.
Yep.
You know, certainly there's limitations in terms of that on-trail carving performance, but you know, if it's a firm day, I'm just going to slide it out a little bit and have fun doing it that way. But the minute it gets a little bit soft, like even just a smidge soft, these do great.
Oh yeah, they're so fun.
Yeah, incredibly fun and very rewarding, and yeah, really, really good ski.
And good value too. I mean, you could say that really about a lot of the skis over here. I guess Playmaker is probably the most expensive ski that we've talked about so far, but I'd say especially ARV, Reckoner, and Bent, that's some really good value, because you're getting a lot of performance and a lot of capabilities. Like, just go anywhere really.
Line Pandora 99. So Pandora's kind of a revamped model line for this year from Line. And really, this has been in the women's division of the catalog for years. And they just kind of erased that from a marketing standpoint and basically made a whole unisex line of Pandoras with all sizes being, you know, throughout the line, all sizes are the same. So Pandora 99, it is a very light and fun and reasonable ski for a lot of people. 1,800 grams here on the scale. Similar to the Bent, where you could say, I just want to put something on my feet and go, and I don't want to think too hard about it. I want to have a good time. I want something that is flexible. Like, this is definitely up there, I would say, with more flexible skis on this wall. And just have it be responsive enough, stable enough underfoot, just to be extraordinarily rewarding from kind of an all-mountain / freeride perspective. What are you finding there?
A lot of scientific data.
But yeah, 99 underfoot and more directional in nature than some of the skis that we've seen. I think that that flex is kind of keeping it more on that side.
It's like in between Playmaker, ARV flex.
Yeah. And then also like on that side of maybe the M-Free and the Idolo in terms of just a smoothness and kind of a sturdiness feel. You know, these are
this
fun.
One's stiffer.
That one's stiffer, good.
Sorry, I'll stop now.
But yeah, we do get lines, Aspen wood core in here and not much else. You know, they are kind of keeping it pretty simple for this ski. And then as they do with some of their other ones, they really focus on thicker sidewall underfoot and then tapering to cap in the tips and the tails. You know, we'll see some good splay here in the tail, but the more directional shape in terms of how the camber is set back into the ski puts it more on the directional side. But nice long rocker profile. This is like one of the better floaters out there at this width for sure. Kind of putting it, we're near like a QST 98 in terms of punching above its level in terms of flotation. And then a lot of tail rocker, pretty long, starts well down in here, and then nice playful splay at the end. You know, free ride oriented twin tip. I think that park performance is available, but certainly not a priority, especially given how the camber and the mount point are set on these skis, certainly a farther back and more on-trail oriented kind of overall look and style.
Pretty interesting between like Optic and Pandora. Like they are twin tips.
Yep.
But it's like, you know, it's I feel like it reflects the market and the audience, like these like aging park skiers or
right.
aging skiers that grew up with line. Is like that, you know, we've talked about this plenty of times before. Like this ski still captures the mentality and the attitude, and it gives you the capability to go in the park and ski switch. But it feels like as a brand they're focusing more on. Well, there's other stuff too,
right,
outside of just like park and urban rails, which I love.
Yeah, and most people fall into that.
Yeah.
Second realm as opposed to the urban rail
right.
genre.
Right.
You know, this is really a very average ski for meeting
right.
a lot of different skiers' needs.
Which is not a bad thing.
No.
Average skis are really good.
Yeah.
Like this is a very average ski.
Right.
And they sell thousands of them.
Yeah, they make a ton of money off of
yeah.
them. But yeah, I think that that's kind of an important note here is that it's not going to excel in one particular area. These are very much like they'll do most of the things you ask. You know, there's certainly a limitation in terms of it's not going to bite into our Eastern hardpack very well.
Yep.
But you can certainly, if you're a skilled skier and you want it to do those things, it'll be easier. But I wouldn't rely on the ski to do the work for you like we would. You know, an Enforcer 99 or even within lines like an Optic 96.
Yep.
Something that's more precise and powerful. But for lightweight, fun, and overall just good times, Pandora 99 is a really, really welcome addition to this lineup here.
I mean, it takes a long time on this wall and before we get to something with metal in it.
Right. Or even like a good amount of power.
Yeah, yeah. But this has some trustworthiness to it.
Yeah, mostly underfoot. That's kind of what I found. So I skied that the day after we got back from Alta this year, which was like a horrible rainy day here in Vermont. And
right back home.
Right back home. And I don't know why I chose that, but I did. And, you know, it was kind of like a mix of firm snow under the rain-soaked top. And you know, it was hard to get any type of power out of it. You know, I think
well, it's so soft right here.
Yeah, if you're looking for stability at speed, it's a little tough. Yeah. But for mobility and agility and fun, it's right up there.
Really nice progression from Pandora 99 to M Free 99, in my opinion, because in a lot of ways, everything that you just said applies to this ski. But I do think that this has a slight uptick in stability and all-mountain performance. And like, I would say my opinion of this ski has changed a little bit over the year. I wonder if it was like snow condition dependent. I don't even remember the first time that we skied it, but I remember thinking like, that's such a loose, fun, playful ski, and it is, but I've learned that it's not like powerful, but there's a little bit of, there's something here.
It's the hybrid core, Jeff. It's that polyurethane. It delivers as advertised.
There's also a fiberglass torsion box.
Yeah, I do like that too.
Yeah.
It's like a sock.
Makes it sound so cool. But yeah, Bob nailed it. So it's poplar and polyurethane in the construction, and then we do get that fiberglass torsion box as well. And they are like a little bit stiffer. You know, this is starting to, there's some substance there. And I think like we're going to see more and more of that as we go that direction on the wall. 1,915 grams, so pretty darn light. And then a super, super playful shape. So it's almost like they took the M3 108 shape and just gave it to the 99. And the M3 108 is, to me, purely a powder ski.
Yeah.
You could ski it in other stuff too, but it's designed for powder. That's a lot of tip rocker there. And then there's a lot of tail rocker too. You know, and this is starting to kind of look like a ski that is less of a twin tip and more just long tail rocker. I would still call it a twin tip, but you know, it's not like, it doesn't curve like a twin tip.
Right.
Like if we looked at the Reckoner tail, it's so much different than that Reckoner tail that comes like way out to
Right.
here. So it is just a little bit different. And then 17-meter turn radius in this ski, and it's an 8-millimeter difference from tip to tail, so 128, 99, 120. And yeah, those first impressions that I had of this ski when I first skied it, they still remain. It is incredibly loose. It's incredibly agile when you are in like the right snow conditions, which to me would be like 4 to 8 inches of kind of creamy snow when you're not hitting anything underneath. It is so fun.
So fun.
So
yeah.
surfy. It's just like incredibly intuitive. But I think when you get it on firm snow, there's some supportiveness here, and like you can push it a little bit. And this is, I'd say, one of the first skis that we've looked at so far that you can push it a little bit, and it responds pretty well. There used to be a huge difference between M3 and M Pro, and they've actually kind of like brought them closer together.
Yeah, I
this
agree.
ski is still like way looser than like M3 100 T or M Pro 100 Ti, but that ski now has more kicked up tail rocker and not the stiffest ski in the world. So I kind of like the direction that they're going in. They're making like both M3 and M Pro for 2025 are really, really, really good ski collections
Yeah.
that a lot of people would benefit from and a lot of people would really like. I personally wouldn't choose this ski as a park ski, but as a fun, all-mountain, playful ski that certainly could dabble in the park, I think it's great. So I think it's cool, and I love that my opinion can change ever so slightly about a ski over the year, or over the 4 years.
3 years, yeah. I think it's interesting because like that ski, you know, in its older form used to be very much a twin of this. And they've
You
kind
mean
of
Menace?
Slicer, Menace 98, yeah.
Was it most recently Menace 98?
Probably Menace, I think
Yeah.
you're right. But that they used to be very, very similar to the Black Ops 98.
This is in a different world of
Yeah.
surfiness.
But, you know, 8 years ago, we would have put these skis right next to each other.
Yeah.
And now they're
Pretty far apart.
They're farther apart.
Yeah.
But really interesting, and like that M3 is one of the best tree skis out there. It is incredibly floaty and maneuverable.
Yeah.
Like that rocker profile for around here is just like ideal.
Totally. And it doesn't get deflected,
Yep.
you know, because there's some substance here, and it is a little bit stiffer. And you know, those 4 to 8 creamy days are great.
Yeah.
But chances are around here you're hitting some stuff underneath, and this ski I think can still handle it. Really good shape too, like this straight cut through the shovel. It just makes it so predictable. And a lot of these skis have similar shapes, but this one's definitely the straightest out of anything that we've looked at so far, particularly right here, and that can be hugely beneficial in trees and soft snow.
Well, that's what we've liked about the M Pro 99 in the past.
Correct.
Was that shape was very easy to steer and maneuver. So it's nice to see that. Yeah, that's a real ski right there.
Every time I pick up these skis, I don't understand how Henrik does the things that he does on this ski.
No, and that's why pro models are really interesting to add to these discussions.
He's not a big guy either.
Yeah.
And it's a testament to his talent
Yep.
and his strength.
Right.
Like, Henrik's always wearing, sorry, this is Henrik Harlow's pro model. This is the Idolo. Henrik wears like the biggest, baggiest clothes.
Yeah.
And if you could just see him in like athletic clothing, he's like super strong.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, this thing is, it's crazy.
Yeah, so you kind of have to take everything that we talk about with a pro model with a grain of salt, because it is a ski designed specifically by the athlete for the athlete, and that what Henrik does on skis is not really what anyone else does on skis.
Not really.
So like,
Other people try.
yeah, well that's the thing, the trying, the aspiration, or just kind of, I would say, the wanting to feel what the athlete feels is the biggest reason to find yourself on an Idolo. We're at 2,100 grams here in, is this the 180, I think?
I think you're right.
Yeah, and so that's got some heft to it. It is based on a blend of poplar and ash in the wood core. Kind of when we talked about the ARV, the older ARVs were built with this similar style of construction with that poplar and ash, and that added a different level of weight and smoothness to it, like pre-Karuba.
Yep.
So Idolo takes that and carries it forward into 2025, new graphic for this year, but a really, really interesting ski. It does have that step-down sidewall, so mostly sidewall underfoot, and then transitions to half cap, and then full cap in the tips and in the tails. So that's giving some type of progression in flex and feel and grip from tip to tail. So it is like consistently inconsistent. So it's the same way front to back, which is pretty interesting. This one, 133, 98, 123. So like, don't think of this as a more symmetrical ski when we kind of get to another loosely based athlete inspired ski with this Studio. It's a little bit closer in that tip to tail taper drop.
Henrik like loves the history of park skiing, and you kind of see it reflected in his pro model ski.
Yeah,
because it doesn't have like these modern shaping and flex, like it's more of a traditionalist thing, which like interestingly makes a ton of sense for Henrik, and it's also more directional than some, which also makes a ton of sense for Henrik, because he gives so much credit and attention to the history of park skiing that I think that trickles into his preferences as a skier.
But yeah, you had mentioned that traditional shape and profile, and kind of I'll point to the Oblivion again as being another example of more classic styling. But yeah, not a whole lot of taper and not a ton of rocker. Certainly, has some, but it is identifiably consistent with the step down to full cap. So not a lot of rocker in the tail here. And if you want to hold those for a second, I want to grab this Oblivion, and oh boy, that was close. Got him.
Careful.
Kind of similar tail shape overall, maybe a little bit more tail rocker at the end, but a very similar tail shape.
There's similar shapes overall.
Yeah. And kind of longer turn radii as well. That one's over 20, as I believe this one is 22.8. So yeah, similar overall.
And real traditional feel.
Yeah, and it was when I believe Matt did most of the skiing on those this year, and
he's a good candidate.
He's a good candidate. He really did a good job of laying it over, and I think that he was impressed with, when you feel something in a ski, whether it's the polyurethane of that Dynastar or the carbon of the Oblivion or the ash wood in the Idolo, there's like something clicks in your head and you're like, oh, this makes sense for one reason or another, or like this is what makes this ski different. And so for Henrik and Matt and other skiers that kind of like that more dense feel in a ski, that's where something like this is really handy.
Yeah, I personally, especially as a 38-year-old park skier now, I want something lighter.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I'm older than Henrik, but he's creeping up there himself.
Yeah.
Next ski we have up here, the first thing I'll say about it is, yes, you are correct. This is not the 2025 ski This is the 2024 graphic of the Prodigy 2. So we kind of just have it up here as a placeholder. We had to send the other graphic back to Faction, and we haven't received our order yet. So just like, I don't know. That's why this ski's up here.
The new one's white.
The new one's whiter in the tail. Yeah, it looks a lot like the Prodigy 1 that we had in the 90 comparison. And there is a change to this ski, so it's a poplar wood core. That remains the same. The change for 2025 is we get a carbon and rubber stomp pad. So essentially, like in this portion of the new ski, there's some carbon and some rubber. This one is 1,930 grams. What length do I have here?
78? 77.
Thank you. It's on that
It's on
ski,
that
not
one.
this one.
Yeah.
So it's not like the lightest ski in the world, but I find that when you ski it, it feels pretty light. And I do think that that carbon and rubber stomp pad, it adds a tiny bit of weight. I can't remember how much. It's pretty negligible.
It's negligible, I believe.
Yeah. So pretty well-rounded ski overall. Oh, I forgot to flex it. I would say we're right there with M3 99, Bob.
In terms of having a little bit of give,
Maybe
but
even
not
a
too
touch. It might even be a touch stiffer than M3 99. And we're definitely in a similar world to M3 99. So it kind of makes sense. And before I get too far ahead here, if you neglected their flex pattern, I would want to put this ski further to the right than the Studio. And I'm excited that they're back to back, because this is one of those situations that's not very black and white.
Honestly, I punted on that one. I just put them.
Perfect. Well, it gave me an opportunity. And I don't remember if I touched on it back there, but I would have maybe put the Reckoner first instead of the Playmaker. Maybe at the end we can talk about where Jeff's edits.
Okay.
We'll have a Jeff's edits section. But I do think you made the right decision, Bob, because the shape is way different on that Studio, but it is stiffer. And I do think it is less slarvy, because this ski does have a lot of rocker. So quite a lot of tip rocker up here, and then quite a lot of tail rocker too. So it does give the Prodigy 2 a lot of maneuverability, and then you get that energy from the camber underfoot. So I think this ski is a little snappier and a little bit more responsive than we get in Studio, even though Studio is stiffer, because you get, like, with this flex and that camber, there's so much bounce to this ski, where that ski is just stiffer. So it's kind of an interesting conversation. But Prodigy is a fantastic choice for a playful all-mountain skier. It kind of doesn't matter whether you're a park skier or not on this ski. And I think that's great. So we are 127, 98, 119, so 8 millimeter difference between tip and tail dimensions. But to me, it's got more of an all-mountain shape than like a park-focused shape.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit more directional to me. There is an option to go new school, pretty centered, but then they also have a classic line on here. So they understand that there are people that are buying this ski and using it as more of a tree ski, fun, playful, all-mountain ski than anything else. So I think it's great. Tons of people love the Prodigy too. It's like, it's almost a ski that's tough to talk about because it is so just well-rounded.
I think Pandora is a really good comparison.
I think Pandora and M3 99, like it's basically the same result.
Yeah.
The recipe and the ingredients are different, but the result is super, super similar. So if you want a very capable ski that you can take just about anywhere, you know, it's not going to win any awards for on-trail carving, but it can absolutely do it. And then similarly, it's not going to win any awards for off-trail maneuverability. Like, there's no way it could compare to a Playmaker 101 for quickness.
Right.
But when you add up everything, it's just really good. A lot of people in our company really like it. Allison, our head boot fitter, it's like her favorite ski in the world. And, you know, she's not really a park skier. She loves, loves, loves the trees.
Yeah.
Like, you typically find her in like the tightest trees in the world, and you're like, what are you doing in there? And she's like, I'm having a blast.
Yeah, well, she's small too. She can fit in those tight spots.
Exactly. But, you know, watching her wiggle around on a Prodigy too just makes a lot of sense and makes you understand what the ski is for.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. Like for me, studio and dancer in the faction world are just, they fit a lot better with me for some reason. And this one gets a little bit lost. Like I've never been fully engaged on this ski, whereas dancer and studio have felt like they fit me better.
Well, I think that's like that's kind of a nod to the well-roundedness of
Right.
this ski. Is it just like kind of does everything,
Yep.
and probably doesn't wow you in any single application. But if you're gonna have one pair of skis, and you want to do a little bit of everything, it's hard to go wrong with a Prodigy too.
Yeah, and like you could say that about pretty much all the 98 millimeter twin tips like in the world.
Yeah, but that one's like right in the middle.
Yeah,
You know, like a lot of people wouldn't like this. A lot of people wouldn't like this. We're starting to get into broader appeal
Yeah.
here. Like, chances are anybody that you put, I've seen people not love the Bent 100, but you know, as soon as you get to like here, this middle swath of skis, like we've talked about
Yeah.
before, like that's just, it's hard to find somebody that would get on it and be like, I don't like this. Because it like checks so many boxes.
and it's funny to think about it like the overall wall in the whole, like the middle swath is really kind of here.
Right, if you
the
extended
yeah.
the full wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting, kind of picking up where we left off in the next
Yep.
video, the next conversation. But until then, Jeff, we have a Faction Studio 2, which I believe you will be skiing this model this year, or this ski this year.
Yeah. You can try it and pry it out of my hands, Faction. Actually, don't. If you want it back, just ask.
So this is a funny one because it's kind of one of two things. It is the next iteration of the Mana 2, which was the next iteration of the Candide 2.0. So like similar to the Adolo, this is kind of a future generation of a Candide Pro model ski or Candide inspired ski.
I wonder if like legally we're not supposed to say that because he's not like associated with Faction anymore.
He was, and
Are
that
we going to
ski
get a
still
cease and
exists.
desist letter from Candide?
I don't know,
That'd be
maybe.
sweet. I would frame it.
But it basically picks up, this is a new top sheet and a new name for a Mana 2. So 102 millimeter underfoot twin tip, 1900 grams, poplar wood core, and just a very fun overall flex. Like you were flexing this, this Prodigy here, and the biggest difference is in the shovel.
So like, to me, it's noticeably stiffer.
It's noticeably stiffer, especially in the shovel.
Like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
So you're going to get more responsiveness, especially from the start of the turn. And then because of the shape, since it's still more symmetrical in nature, I don't know if I'm going to be able to read these numbers here, Jeff. 131, 102, 127. So 4 millimeter drop.
It's one of the more symmetrical skis up here.
Yeah. And like what that does is it really increases the roundness of the turn, like just making the tail feel more involved in the finish portion of the turn and making those really clean round turns. I think Reckoner is kind of a good example of how you, even with a softer flex, having that extra width back there makes you feel that tail really come around.
Well, these are the two most symmetrical skis up here.
Yeah.
And one is quite soft and one is rather stiff.
Yeah.
So you can kind of like, if you're looking for that shape, these are two great ones to choose between because they're going to have very different feel on snow.
And this Studio is also has just more sidewall than the Prodigy. So it's a little bit more classic in terms of sidewall construction. And then taper shape and rocker profile, somewhat symmetrical, although definitely not as much tail rocker as tip rocker, but still some. But nice positive camber underfoot, and we do have your, what is that, new school, progressive, and classic, similar to what we see in Prodigy.
Yeah, but what's interesting to me is like, I think most people choosing Studio should go new school.
Yeah.
Where like on Prodigy, I think you can do whatever you want. But I don't think the Studio makes nearly as much sense going back to a traditional mount point.
I'd probably do it. I'd do classic.
Yeah.
No, what would I do? Progressive. That's probably where
Yeah,
I'd be.
I just think with the more symmetrical shape, and I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, it's begging to be mounted more forward.
Yeah. No, I think you got to take it. You're right. You got to take advantage of the symmetry and the shape and the rocker profile if that's what they are advertising.
Yeah, and I'm excited to ski it a bunch.
Yeah, I mean, it's really got a nice solid feel to it.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, that stiff flex. I don't think it's as like peppy or energetic as some other skis here.
Even, I think the Prodigy is more peppy and
Yeah.
energetic.
Like it's smoother and more rolling. I remember that from, you know, my first impressions on Mana 2 was like, whoa, this thing really like feels really solid
Yeah.
and stable.
Yeah.
Whereas I didn't really get that as much from Prodigy. So
Yep.
that's kind of,
I agree.
that was my main reason for putting them back to back this way.
Next ski up here is the Oblivion 102. This one is very interesting. I'm glad that Bob kind of alluded to this when we were talking about eDolo. Just a wood core in this ski and some carbon fiber as well. Pretty darn light. Honestly, it's lighter than I remember it being. So sub 1,800 grams here. This is the 181. We've got a 135, 102, 125 shape with, Bob, you nailed it, a 22.8 meter turn radius.
Love it. Love
So
that long
a
shape.
huge turn radius, and although I mean, it's a head.
Yeah.
So of course it's going to be light and kind of stiff. Certainly not as stiff as cores, but pretty stiff. Like on the stiffer side of all the skis that we have up here, I would say. So lightweight and stiff, that is synonymous with modern head all mountain skis. And then not much rocker or taper, which is just fascinating that you're going to do that and combine it with a 22.8 meter turn radius. So that's about all the tip rock you get, and I'm decambering the ski. When you don't decamber it, there's almost none. And then same is true in the tail. There's really not much tail rocker back there until you start to decamber it, and then it kind of bows out just a little bit. And no taper whatsoever. This was handled by quality control number 6.
Good job, number 6.
Yeah, it looks good to me. I think number 6 gets to keep their job. And then yeah, same thing in the tip there. There's no early taper whatsoever. So with a slightly stiffer flex pattern and with really like a complete lack of rocker and taper basically, and a decent camber height as well, it definitely gives the ski a unique personality. I would say it's not a great ski for like an intermediate, where a lot of skis up here, in fact, I can't really think of anything so far that wouldn't work for an intermediate. Maybe that Studio 2 just wouldn't really be like the best choice, but everything else I think is reasonably approachable. This, just with its long, straight shape, it kind of can be a little bit much for that less aggressive, more intermediate level skier. Matt Stromecki skied this a bunch this year and loved it.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know, how big is Matt? 6'2"?
200.
200?
So he's like my height, but 200,
younger,
25 pounds less and 20 years younger.
Yeah. So he's a big, strong, athletic, and
Yeah.
like still pretty agile skier. And he loved this thing. So I think that's like a pretty good representation of who should be considering this ski. If you want something that you can just go out and ski really, really fast, this is a great choice. I would say Unleashed is also a great choice. I would say Super Black Ops there is also a great choice, and there are others down there too, because we're getting into that kind of like powerful twin tip world.
A little more performance in these skis, for sure.
Yep. And you know, if you want it to make a more dynamic turn or a shorter radius turn, you gotta flex it. And it's not the stiffest ski in the world. It's not impossible to do, but it requires some technique and some effort.
Yeah.
And I'd say the same is true in the park. So Oblivion 102, plenty of people are going to be choosing this for the park. And I would say the same. Like, you should be a reasonably high-level park skier. I think there are plenty of other skis up here, particularly these skis over by me, that are going to be more forgiving and easier for like a new skier who's still learning and progressing in the park. But if you already have the skills and you already have the technique, you're gonna absolutely love this thing, especially if you're like younger and strong and you're going big out there. I actually think it's easier in the trees than you might think because it's so straight. So that like long turn radius, it never wants to just make a turn when you're not ready. It just kind of lets you do whatever you want, but it's not easy either.
Yeah.
So like QST98 down there is a phenomenal tree ski, and that's way easier.
Way shorter radius.
Yeah.
Like not almost half, but
It's a lot
15
shorter.
versus 22.8.
Yeah. So it's just like there's a lot of things to consider with this ski, but if you are like the correct level skier, you're gonna have a really good time on it.
I had a really good time on it. It's very engaging and
Yeah.
like very responsive, and I appreciate that about Twin Tips. And as you know, I'm a head core fan, so getting that carbon feel in a Twin Tip ski
Yep.
is like right up my alley.
Yep.
Like I think this makes some of the cleanest turns out there, even though it's a longer turn shape. You can certainly make it flex, and you can access a shorter arc. And we talk about that with some skis that state a longer radius but end up being shorter. Black Crow's Justice comes
Yep.
to mind, 20, 21 meters, but it really feels like it's more of an engaging carver, and I'd say that's true for Oblivion as well.
Yep.
So really, really fun. It's just got that classic, full sidewall construction as well that I think just put this on like a different level of quality and performance than a lot of other skis. And this one's a little bit different. This is the Line Chronic 101, and this one kind of jumped off the page at us 2 years ago when it first came out, where we just saw a huge kind of influx of 100 millimeter twin tips. That Playmaker was on the list. I think that ARV 100 was there. This one, and this one really jumped out because I feel like you're not expecting a lot from a Chronic 101. The Chronic 95 had been around for a while, and that was kind of a known quantity, like great mix of park and all mountain. And then they went to 94 and 101 here. And, when I heard about this, I wasn't expecting much.
Yep.
And then when you got on it, you're like, whoa, there's really something here. This is one of the most impressive new skis out there. That continues into 2025 with a new top sheet. And what they're doing with this that makes it interesting is mixing kind of a soft flex in the shovel, a stiffer flex in the underfoot, and then a similarly soft flex in the tail. So they're getting a lot of power out of this thick core underfoot, and then blending it with thin tips and tails. They also use a thick cut sidewall, so the sidewall is going more into the ski. If you think about that, like the Dynastar using polyurethane, basically putting more material along the sides to increase smoothness and responsiveness. That's what Line does just with that sidewall material. And because most of that is found in that middle, 60% of the ski, you get a really robust underfoot feel. With super playful and surfy tips and tails. Pretty heavy, on the heavier side, 2,050 grams here.
Well, if it was lighter, I think it would be over here.
Yeah, it would basically be a Pandora.
Yeah.
Like that's, they're similar enough in terms of how they're shaped, but a little bit more heft in the Chronic and certainly better edge grip and stability at speed in this ski, which I was blown away at given how thin and how flexible the shovels are, is how well this thing handles speed. But really fun, free ride, surfy shape, like I would say similar to your Playmaker over there in terms of how the tip shape and the shovel are constructed or shaped and kind of, they're very similar, kind of a little bit spoonier, some taper here.
Yeah, this has a little bit longer rocker.
Yep.
But you're not wrong.
But pretty similar overall. I'd say you have more tail splay in yours as well.
Yep.
This is, tail rocker starts about here, but never really amounts to a whole lot, especially from kind of a Chronic freestyle perspective. If you're more park oriented, the 94 seems to make more sense. But if you're being playful in softer snow and you're a more creative skier, I think 101 is a better fit. But incredibly solid and one of those skis that really just jumped out at us as being very different than what I expected personally.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think it's also fair to say that it inspired some of the new like finish qualities to this ski.
Yeah.
We talked about before.
And then thinning those tips to really just make a light swing weight for more playful and creative skiing. But still, you know, this was day 2 after we got back from Alta. I was on this and was like, oh, this is
a little bit more oomph to
a little
it.
bit more robust than that Pandora.
Yep. And I would say this one is quite robust. This is the Unleashed 98 from Nordica. Before we started filming, I kind of threw out some thoughts to Bob, and one of them was that next video that we're going to do, which is more carving-oriented skis in this same width range. This out-carves, like, I don't know, 6 to 10 skis that we're going to talk about in the next video.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And like, it reminds me of when we were talking about the QST 92, and we were like, it's over here with the maneuverable skis, but this actually is like pretty darn good on trail too. So it's like really good carving, but what keeps it over here is it also has freestyle capabilities and maneuverability. So it's really interesting, and it's not nearly as loose as a lot of skis up here, but if you want that carving performance that we're really going to talk about more in the next video, but you want something that belongs on this wall, it's like Unleashed 98 or Super Black Ops or Rustler.
Rustler, yeah.
And like those are kind of like your best options there. Poplar and Beechwood core in this ski, and then this is the first ski that we see having metal, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So this has that terrain-specific metal that we first saw in Santa Ana skis, and now we've had an Unleashed for 3 years. So it's full width up here, and then goes into the middle of the ski, and then goes full width underfoot, and then does the same exact thing in the tail. 1,900 grams. So despite having metal in there, they keep it, I think, impressively light. And it's got a really nice flex pattern. You know, we've talked about a lot of skis with like differences in their flex pattern, softer tips and tails like we just looked at in Chronic. This is very consistent tip to tail, and that's one of the reasons why it carves so well. But it is truly a twin tip. You know, it's, as far as its shape goes, it's very similar to that old Soul Rider.
Yeah, I mean, I love how it's just a little bit like taperless.
Yep.
You know, similar to the Oblivion here.
Yeah, so not too much rocker up here.
Nope.
And then not much taper either, like Bob was saying. It's got kind of an Enforcer-inspired tip, but I would say maybe even less taper. And then same is true in the tail. There's not much tail rocker, and there's not much taper either. So you get really long, effective edge in this ski. What is the 18.1 meter turn radius, and then we're 133, 98, 122. So although there is some freestyle capabilities in this ski, it's kind of more of like a directionally shaped twin tip. The mount point, there's only one recommended mount point that's right there. I believe I've gone further forward than that. I can't remember exactly how far forward, but if anybody wants to know, I can measure my Unleashed skis, because I've had now two pairs of these, and I'd love to get a third, because this is the best graphic.
It's the best graphic, yeah.
Definitely. But I really, really like skiing this ski, and really the reason why is it rips carves. It's like unbelievable. It just makes like the cleanest, roundest carving turns that I've ever made on a twin tip, period.
Yeah, I agree. You know, for me, 10 out of 10 in that regard.
It's unbelievable.
For twin tips. Like,
yeah,
it's
wild.
Really crazy.
Yeah.
And like you had mentioned, that long effective edge, you know, when you're just engaged for more, you're feeling the entirety of the carve.
Yeah, and it's not like crazy stiff, so you can bend it.
You can
but
get the bend.
You don't push through it. So it's just, I mean, it's unbelievable, and we're not the only people that talk about it. Like, I think everybody that has been on this ski or sells this ski talks about how well it carves, but it truly does And then I also think it's fair to say that that performance and that characteristic, it does take away some on the other side. It is not like the loosest ski up here by any means. If you're going
Right.
to ski it in the trees or in soft snow, you're going to want to have like some decent technique and decent ability and decent strength.
You just want to be ready.
Yeah.
Like that. Like that's what I found
Yeah,
when I'm skiing it in the trees and the bumps. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
it does it, but like
yeah.
I have to do it too.
Well, and the same is true in the park.
Yeah.
So it can do anything you want it to do in the park, but you have to kind of be on it compared to Playmaker, ARV, Rustler over here that are...
Reckoner.
Sorry, Reckoner, not Rustler. Reckoner over here that are so much looser and so much more forgiving. And if you like take off a little too early or start your spin too early, it's not going to catch and it's not going to like punish you. Where I would never really use the adjective punishing to describe the Unleashed 98, but the potential is there.
Yeah.
If you're not where you need to be as a skier to really benefit from it and use it correctly. So it's another one, just like Oblivion 102, that to me is like, it's a high level park ski in the sense that the person choosing it should be a high level park skier. But if you take park out of the equation, kind of like anybody can ski it. Again, it's
Yeah.
not like the easiest in the trees, but
Could do
you
it.
could do it just fine.
Yeah. Same with the bumps. Like it's really like this amount of tail rocker is necessary in the bumps with this construction.
Yeah, well, but it's wide too.
Yeah.
so
It's not my favorite.
yeah.
Like I can make it do it, but I'd much rather be on a Bent 100 or
QST.
a QST or something like that, where you get like a little bit more engagement out of the tail. You know, I actually don't love this amount of splay in the tail for moguls, but I think some people will.
It helps me.
Yeah, but when you're further forward, like you hardly even get there.
What?
Well, if you're farther forward,
Yeah.
right, you get a lot more edge to worry about.
Yeah.
And you like that?
I like that there's enough twin tip back there
Okay.
that it helps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you now.
It's not like too catchy.
Yeah,
It is catchier than most up here, but if it didn't have that much splay, I feel like I would be in a world of trouble.
yeah. I mean, basically, if you did away with that, you'd be on
a Santa Ana.
Santa Ana,
Yeah.
and those are not the most forgiving.
No,
So,
but it is unbelievable
yeah,
how it carves. Best carving twin tip ever made. Maybe?
I don't know.
It's got to be up there.
I'm not going to say
And
it's
like
not.
we often talk about it in comparison to the next ski, and the reason why I think the Unleashed is a better carving ski is it's crisper.
Yeah,
The Unleashed is just like raw and I would say more stable, but not as crisp in how it makes a round turn,
yeah.
but has other benefits that Unleashed doesn't.
No, this is the Rossignol Super Black Ops 98. Adding the super to the name, I think, really just kicks it into high gear.
Yes.
It has a old school Rossignol 7SK inspired graphic to it, and they
Yeah.
also make a matching binding. They
I
make a
know.
pivot
Yeah.
that is like, it's almost too matching. You know, like I like matching colors and stuff like that, but it's a lot visually when you pair that pivot.
To
with
me, it
this
would
ski.
look great with a white pivot.
Right. I mean, there's, more complementary matching rather than full match.
Sure.
Regardless.
Fair enough.
2,100 grams. This is no feather of a ski. We are built with a poplar wood core, Titanal beam underfoot, and then we get rubber in the tips and in the tails. So there's definitely some additional materials that make this thing just very solid, smooth, and sturdy from tip to tail. And it is also like pretty consistent in flex. It's not the stiffest ski out there, but it is very consistent. Very similar kind of feel to a Faction Studio and a QST 98 in terms of kind of how smooth and silent it is. These are very, very absorbent skis and minimal chatter. And that's kind of what you're alluding to in terms of the crispness, where this just has a little bit more of of a lag in terms of the weight, but it does feel like it engages really, really well. And it's just so much fun to ski. They haven't changed it a whole lot, and I think that's a good thing because this is one of those kind of early 98 millimeter twin tip designs that has really fueled most of these skis here. Like
Yep.
This is a very much a
Very influential.
a Godfather style of ski in terms of how it's built most of this wall here. So pretty cool stuff. And kind of classic in terms of taper and rocker as well. So some early taper, but not a ton. Also not a ton of rocker as well. Nice long but low accessible camber underfoot and a 19-meter turn radius. And more of a directional tail, I would say. Very round, very easy to get to finish a turn on, although you can get a lot of energy out of the sidewall. So with the full sidewall in this ski, you are getting more kind of edge grip and on snow, on trail performance than some other skis here that kind of taper to cap. This definitely has that more traditional and rugged feel to it.
Pretty rugged.
Yeah.
That might be the best adjective for that ski. Rugged.
Yeah, and like similar to the Unleashed, you do have to be an active participant in order to get the most out of it. I think that it's more accessible because of it's a little bit flatter in a camber profile, but heavier as well. So there's kind of some balance. There's a balancing act here.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that for trees, for crud, for chop, for softer snow, this is a slightly better choice than Unleashed 98.
Yep, I agree 100%.
But for purely carved turns, the Unleashed is more engaging and is able to make a crisper and rounder turn. But that's not to say that this isn't an absolute blast. I just think it has a different feel to it, very preferential and use case based.
Yep.
So it's not like it's, I mean, you could certainly do this very easily and swap these skis.
Yep.
And you would not find an argument here. It is really just kind of the weight and I would say, overall just smoothness and stability that puts this on the other end.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll do our little edits at the end, but I think you could push Unleashed completely off the wall.
Right.
If you wanted to.
Yep.
But its twin tip shape keeps it.
Yeah.
Keeps it over here.
No, I really like these things, and there's a lot of usefulness for this ski here where we are.
Yep.
Like I think Vermont's an ideal Super Black Ops 98 location.
I would say it's also an ideal QST 98 location.
Yeah, we're really starting to get a lot of universal appeal when we get here.
Yep. So this is the Salomon QST 98. It's unchanged for 2025, except for this nice, deep, rich purple top sheet that I really like. There aren't many purple skis out there.
No.
Ironically, the next one's purple too.
And I have a nice purple binding that'll look great on this.
Perfect. Do you have a pair of QST 98s?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. So poplar wood core in the ski. Then we get that CFX fiber, so carbon and flax. We get cork damplifier in this ski, and we get double sidewalls. And this is like a narrow powder ski. That's kind of how I think about the QST 98. It has a lot of similarities to like Blank and QSTX even too. Definitely the most taper that we've seen so far, and then we'll look closer at the shape in just a second here. It's not light. So 2,050 grams, call it. I think this is what length? The
83?
183, correct? So it's not light, and I feel like a lot of skiers, when they think of QSTs in their mind, they think they're lighter, and that's just because they're so gosh darn playful and maneuverable that I do think they probably feel lighter. And similarly, they're not like tremendously soft. You know, there's some supportiveness to that flex pattern.
Yeah, it's a thick core profile.
Totally, and then add in that double sidewall. What gives it its playfulness is, like, that is the most tip rocker that we've seen by far. And then same is true in the tail. Like, that is so much tail rocker. It's wild. And then same is true with taper. So it has the most rocker and the most taper of anything that we've seen up here. Like this tip reminds me of like Sky 7.
Yeah, or DPS. Like,
Yeah.
And when you talk about the turn radius, that's where it all kind of
Yeah, 15.
factors in.
This one's 17.
Sorry,
'cause
17.
So 133, 98, 121, so purely directional, and then 17-meter turn radius. And yeah, that turn radius combined with this rocker profile in both the tips and tails makes it incredibly agile. It's so good in the trees. It's really good in soft snow too. And I think the thing that surprises most people is it's actually reasonably good on trail too. It's so stiff, like right underfoot here where that double sidewall is, that like regardless of the fact that you're skiing a really short effective edge on firm snow,
Yeah.
the ski actually performs quite well. So it's like, for how maneuverable it is, for how fun it is off trail, I do think it kind of punches above its weight for carving performance, just like that QST 92. It's a very similar conversation, but this is like really designed for maneuverability and soft snow. We're really kind of exiting twin tip world though. Like
Yeah.
Black Ops, I keep calling it Black Ops 98. Super Black Ops is still a twin tip. I personally wouldn't really want to ski it in the park because it's heavier. If you're Chris Logan and Parker White and you're like one of the better skiers in the world, you're going to do fine on it in the park. But that ski was still in the twin tip world where I think this ski, we're squarely outside of that. Like, this is not a park ski by any means. Could it do it? Sure. But there's so much that's directional about it, like even just the placement of the kind of double sidewall section that's pushed back in the ski. So it's really like, this is a tree ski, this is an all mountain ski, this is a narrow free ride ski, and it's really good. It's so much fun. Really all the QSTs are. They're so much fun. And that's like, I think it's great when companies focus on fun. And I think that that's something that Salomon does really well. And then they've got like, we'll talk about the Stance 102 in the next article, which is fun, but it's fun for very different reasons. It's fun to go super fast on.
It's like the opposite reasons.
It's pretty much the opposite reasons, where this thing is just so quick and so agile and so intuitive when you're skiing it in soft snow, making short turns. But then, yeah, you can surprisingly carve pretty well on it too.
You do have to be like...
Modern carver?
Modern carver, I was just going to say like visually and mentally, you have to alter your perspective. Like it's a weird visual when you're looking at this.
It's counterintuitive.
Yeah, so you really kind of have to ignore the front and back of the ski.
You sort of have to just act like you're skiing on a slalom ski.
Yeah.
Like short slalom ski.
And once you kind of forget that the tip and the tail of the ski exist, then the performance goes up.
On a groomer.
On a groomer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a limitation to firmness, I think. Kind of, I forget which one we talked about, but like, the bent, I think. You know, the second that the groomers get slightly soft and cut up, then this thing is
really good.
It's 100% there.
Yeah.
It's really just kind of the fresh corduroy or the smooth firmness, you know, whether it's refrozen stuff or anything like that, that's going to give this thing some issues. The second it gets beyond that, even just an inch, is when this thing comes alive.
Yeah.
And then you can take full advantage of that shorter radius.
Yeah, because you're digging, it's like sinking in a little bit more.
Yeah. And then basically like it's making that slightly softer groomer feel like powder.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting thing about these QSTs. Now we got a Fischer Ranger 102. This is one of those ones that you want to put on the next wall, and I'm not sure you're wrong about that.
We're going to save that for edits.
Okay, I won't say anything more then.
No.
In a vacuum, this Fischer Ranger 102 returns with a new graphic for this year. I think that they are really kind of focusing back on the purple and pink of what we've seen in the Ranger 102 FR of yesteryear, and they're trying to reclaim some of that glory with these new graphics. And the ski returns structurally unchanged, though. We do get a mix of poplar and beech in this ski, and then we get their shaped TI layer underfoot. So this laminate of metal goes from about here to here, and there's a little slit in the middle in the tips and tails, and then a notch in the center. This one allows for more consistent flexion in the underfoot zone, and these two kind of H-shaped or wing style metal layers allow the ski to kind of articulate and be more supple in terms of softer snow. But kind of flexible in the tips here, and then stiffer underfoot, and then a little bit more flexible in the tails. 2080, 50, 2050, let's say, for the weight. So we do see that kind of creep up, and 138, 103 in this 183, 128, and can you read that? 17 meter turn radius or 19? 17.
19.
Ah,
I gotcha.
one of those two. So this is one of those ones that I think is like advertised a bit longer, but skis a bit shorter. So you can really get into the shovel of the
Yeah, I
ski
agree. You can bend it.
and get it to bend, and then it hooks into the turn really easily. I think it's a really good, I think it's a better soft snow option than a firm snow option. I think in the trees and in powder, it is very capable and very fun. I kind of struggle with this amount of rocker and the softer flex in the shovel in that wider shape. Overall, in terms of firm snow, similar to the QST, you just kind of have to alter your mental game and be like, all right, I'm not going to push, I'm not going to drive forward in this ski. I'm going to kind of ride the middle and kind of, like you were saying, more modern carving style. So I think that that's part of the charm here. And, it just takes a minute to kind of figure out. But really wide, spoony shovel here. I think that this, more than anything else, just screams like, I'm going to keep the tip out of the snow and it's not going to dive at all. The more tapered shape of the QST, that's going to cut through it and be a little bit more maneuverable. This one feels a little bit surfier. But with that metal underfoot, it does deliver some nice precision to the edge. And then, again, not a twin tip, but certainly a turned up tail. I kind of think if they kept this momentum going here at the end as opposed to...
Yeah, it would look more twin tippy.
It would look a lot more twin tippy. So just a visual thing there, but overall some nice tail rocker and splay for being more playful in the softer snow.
Yep.
But generally...
I don't fault you for putting it on this wall.
I mean, Fischer didn't have representation on the other wall. I think it might have been a numbers. I think this was like the evener.
Well, I thought it was, so I came in here and looked at the wall or looked at your list or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought it was kind of funny that you had put this ski in here. Not funny, because I don't think you're wrong, but it seemed like a reflection of the experiences that we've had on it.
Yeah.
Like me being lighter, I find it pretty darn stable and like can rip carving turns on it. And we've found that you just push through the shovel a little bit more on firmer snow
Right.
and stuff like that. So I just thought that was interesting. And do you know off the top of your head what the first ski is in the next comparison?
No, I don't think I made that order.
Because that would be like really interesting to me.
Yeah.
And maybe like we can talk about that in the next video of like, well, where would Ranger 2 fit
Right.
right here? And
But it is brand dependent too. Like,
Sure.
this is the Rustler is here because the Anomaly is in the next one.
Sure.
So there's
Yep.
some other factors involved.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think it's a phenomenal ski. I've always jived really well with the new 102.
Yeah.
Despite me being more of a maybe 102 FR skier on paper. I love that thing. I generally ski it shorter too. I ski it in like that 176, and it's
Yeah.
just so quick and super fun.
I think I would get along better with the 190 from a smoothness and kind of longer carving perspective.
So last ski that we're going to talk about up here is this Rustler 10, and this is the second time that we've talked about the Rustler 10 because we had it in the mid 100 category. That's because the lengths change, or the widths change a little bit depending on length, but if we had the 180 here, which is the ski that I like, or the length that I like, it would be 102 underfoot. This one is actually, what, 104? There, I passed it to you.
Thank you. 104.
Yeah, so this longer length of the Rustler 10 is a little bit outside of the width range that we're talking about here, but I think it belongs here, and I think it's really good to talk about. Back again unchanged for 2025. True Blend Freeride wood core. We've talked extensively about True Blend over the years now. And then Flux Form metal. So there's 3 pieces of metal, 2 of which run along the edges of the ski, and then there's another piece underfoot. And none of those pieces of metal actually connect to the other. They are 3 independent pieces of metal, which I think is important. This is a 186. It's pretty long. We're 1,980 grams. And then really just like a predictable, consistent flex pattern. Very similar to what we saw in Unleashed 98, I would say. And I just love this ski. I mean, I love the 9 too. They're both just so good. Good amount of tip rocker up here. Like, this is intended to be for soft snow. The Rustler line always has been. And then good amount of tail rocker back here as well. That 186 is just too long to flip around hitting stuff.
That's mobility issues.
And then, like, not aggressive early taper, but a little bit more than, say, what we saw in Unleashed, both in the tip and the tail there. And then relatively low camber height. So I just think these things are incredibly well-rounded for what a freeride ski should be. Like, the previous Rustler generation was always really, really fun in the trees, really fun in soft snow, super playful, super maneuverable, but lacked a little bit of stability at speed. And now just like extending the metal super far compared to the old version that ended like there and placing it on the edges, it just has boosted this ski's like overall stability and confidence at speed without taking away its playfulness. So just an extremely well-rounded ski. You're seeing a lot of them out on the mountain, and there's really no, I don't know.
There's no reason not to ski it.
Yeah, it's not surprising at all.
Yeah.
Like that, the Rustler 9 and this Rustler 10, they're so good, and they work so well for a bunch of different types of skiers, which I think is awesome.
I feel like I got, not in trouble, but I said 2 different things in 2 different, maybe like last year's ski test, I said, this is really strong and smooth and powerful. And then when we did our kind of on-snow review with Matt here in the studio, I said it pivots better than anything else. And I remember someone like reached out and said, well, which is it? Like you said, yeah. And that was obviously my canned response.
Yeah, and like, that's why it's so good.
That's why it's so good, is because it does it both, and it's really hard when you have like a 6-minute ski test video to say all of the things that a ski that does as many as
well, and it's also a little bit snow condition and terrain dependent.
Yeah.
Of like, depending on what you're skiing, you're gonna feel one thing or the other.
Yeah.
Like if you're just skiing groomers all day and like making carving turns, then it feels pretty darn strong. If you get a foot of snow and then you're skiing trees all day, it feels pretty darn maneuverable and agile.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, your brain just kind of focuses on what you feel in the moment. So
yeah.
I don't fault you for saying that.
Yeah, and because they're all true, and that was kind of my response to this individual was like, yeah, sorry I didn't say it all at one time, but I'll certainly, I'm more than happy to mush all of those
double down on it. Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Not like you were wrong in either of those assessments.
No, like for the stability and power, it's amazing how agile it is. And when we put it, like, it was 19 something or?
Yeah, it was sub 2,000.
Yeah, like 1,950 grams in this length.
In a 186.
In a 186, like that, I'm surprised at how light it is for how smooth it is.
Yeah. So you want me to do some edits to your wall here, Bob?
Sure.
All right, Jeff's edits. So Reckoner 102, I think I'm not actually going to move things, but I do think Reckoner 102 could potentially go right there. I wouldn't change much else, but with the soft flex pattern, you could make an argument that it is the slarviest. I do think having the lighter weight Playmaker over there is nice because it's just extremely flickable. But if we were to focus only on the adjective slarvy, I might give it to Reckoner. Where are my other edits here? I think we're pretty good through this section here.
Were you worried about the factions at all and the Idolo?
I think Idolo could go potentially on the other side of both factions.
I would almost just swap Idolo and this.
Yeah, we could swap Idolo and Prodigy. I think, yeah, I like that because I do think that Studio has a little bit more oomph to it than Idolo. You know, I think like arguably we could swap Chronic and Oblivion 102.
Yep.
I think like the shape of that Oblivion feels a little bit more carvy, where the shape, the increased rocker of the Chronic gives it some slarviness. I think you could push Unleashed all the way to the right or leave it off the wall entirely.
I'd even like, I would be
I think you could do a trade like that.
interested in doing that.
Yep, I agree. I also think you could keep going and keep trading Unleashed.
And keep bumping Unleashed until
it was
the parking lot?
Well, because like I kept, as you were talking about Rustler and Ranger there, I kept thinking like, I don't necessarily think those carve better than Unleashed. Right. I actually think Rustler feels a little looser than Unleashed, and I think like, if anything, Ranger might too. But it's like, it's interesting because that Unleashed is truly a twin tip.
Right.
And there is way more park application, but we're not really going park to directional. We're going Slarvy to Carvy. So that's where I could shift that just a little bit.
Yeah. And like, I would say that this is better on like firm snow than the Ranger.
Correct.
You know, like you said, you can keep moving it along.
You can keep going. Then like as soon as you have the same conversation with Unleashed and Rustler,
yeah, you
could keep moving it.
I'm not willing to make that swap quite yet.
That's
but
fine.
I'm open to a conversation about it.
My mind goes to the shape.
Yeah.
The longer rocker profile of the Rustler.
Yeah.
So anyways, that was fun.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the next one. Moving into way more directional skis, a lot of metal, a lot of heavy hitters.
Yeah, but then like a Core 99, which is light and carbon powered. So
yep.
there's some interesting stuff there too.
Yep. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that. And as always, let us know if you have any questions, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.